we've been to their home there before, so now I get to see the before and after. And it was a major reno. And they were staying with a family friend's house, a family member's house in Salem during session.
Yeah, I kept seeing them at Ross.
Yeah.
And those online, we're just trying to connect now.
We are. Oh, can imagine, instead of driving from
We are
house
now.
every day, now I drive from a nice part of town. So his family has a place.
Yeah. But that turns it off on all. No, it just turns on yours.
No, so. Just one bit here.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody online, you can hear us, okay?
Alex and.
Yes, you can hear us.
Together, they live together.
Thank you.
School and been buds for a long time. Yeah.
One of my favorite juices, right? He was like, oh, go ahead. We better get off that.
Well, it sounded like it's.
Sorry about that. It took us a little bit to get the connection going. Sorry about the delay. Thank you for waiting for us. Yeah, let's call
No
to
need
order
to
this
apologize.
legislative committee meeting for September 26, 2025. I'm Julie Hoy.
Vanessa Nordyke.
Deanna Gwen.
Deanna, you're muted.
No, she wasn't.
Irving and Brown.
Turn up volume. I think our volume might be, it's silent on the
And
computer.
26,
That
20.
matters. Here we go.
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yes, and we're
Okay.
hearing it in delay, so we're fixing.
Oh, gotcha.
There.
Just mute that perhaps.
See, that's why being online is not beneficial to anyone.
I think now we just have one meeting. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah. But it's still going to YouTube though, right?
It's still going to
So make
YouTube.
sure we're not violating the.
See, it's going to YouTube up in the corner.
Perfect, thank you.
My thing is I turn into a Luddite the minute
Jeremy
I
leaves.
have to pay attention and focus. I'm actually very good. Did we get through everyone? No, Dr. Brown, would you tell us you're here?
Irving and Brown here.
Thank you, sir. And city staff? We'll talk. You'll talk, okay. Okay. Perfect. All right, on to discussion, federal budget update from Mark and Terry, are they both here? Terry, is Terry tending to be Mark today?
Hello, I'm here. Do you want to start with this?
Yes, please.
Okay. And I apologize in advance if there's somebody drilling into the side of my office, it seems. So if it's loud. But everything is a bit of a mess in DC at the moment. There is no federal budget. There will be no federal budget to end the fiscal year, and the government is currently looking like it will shut down next week on Wednesday. The House and the Senate have both rejected, or the House passed and the Senate rejected a continuing resolution to keep the government funded. However, Congress is slated to come back next week to work on this right before the deadline. But the speaker just announced in the last hour or so that he would not be bringing the House back next week. And so therefore, unless the Senate came up with some sort of a solution to this, the House would just stay home and allow the government to go into shutdown. I doubt very much that is the final thing that we will hear on this, but it is where things currently stand. It's not a great position, but it is where it is. Conversely, or concurrently, the White House Office of the Management of the Budget, they are saying that they will, rather than just close down normally, that they will fire most or all federal employees in the interim once this happens so that they don't have to pay them back for the time during the government closure. This is all extremely unusual and going to cause lots of controversy. I cannot tell you right now how this will end up, but it's going to be an ugly few weeks in the news, I feel. So might be better off not to watch the national news for a few days. But we are here listening and working to try to make sure that you guys have the best information. As always, we're making sure your priorities are in front of the right people at the right time. But right now, it is certainly a time of waiting and watching, unfortunately.
Mine's not gonna be much better.
Come on, Justin.
Oh, good. Thanks, Justin.
I don't know whether or not to say thank you. Okay, Justin Martin.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council and staff. Good to see everybody. To piggyback along what Terry was saying, these are interesting times, and it's not just at the federal government level, it is at the state level as well. So I will touch real quick on the interim calendar, talk a little bit about the legislature as a whole, do a quick update about the special session, and then another quick update about some capital district funding conversations that we've had. So with that, legislative update in general. As people have seen, we are currently in a special session. They are gaveling in and gaveling out, as is their constitutional mandate. And just to be frank with everybody here, I've never experienced this in my 29, 30 years in that building, where you have a Democratic governor's office, a supermajority in the Senate, and a supermajority in the House, and they can't seem to get their ducks in a row and get something accomplished. So we are kind of in uncharted territory here. We talked earlier, Courtney and I and the mayor, about the realities of what happens during these sessions and how times have changed. Much to Terry's comments, we don't see kind of everybody coming to the table for the better of their communities and the state as a whole. It's really siloed off into team A, team B, and some other difficulties. And again, you guys have heard me say a million times, we've been blessed in this city, especially since we had the Senate president from this city for a long amount of time. But we also had Jackie Winters on the Republican side. Those two really cared about the decorum of the legislature as a body. They ended up moving their people in the right direction on both sides of the aisle and accomplishing things that benefit all of us as Oregonians and citizens of Salem. We don't have that right now, and that's frustrating. It's frustrating for us on the advocacy side, but I know it's probably frustrating for members as well. And when I talk to certain members, again, nothing's kind of the norm. Usually after Labor Day, people start talking about campaigns for next cycle. There's fundraisers, there's ways to go about their normal business. We're not seeing any of that yet. We're not seeing members within their caucuses willing to move in that direction. So I don't want to be negative and say that's a lack of leadership, but we're in the situation that we're in now. So how does that impact us? It's a lot of wait and see. I don't know that we have a lot of ability to impact the process right now because it's really all internal, whether that's leadership fighting amongst themselves, leadership fighting amongst chambers. However that works, it makes for very difficult times. So we will stay the course. We will see how things happen. We're going to see these things play out. As Terry mentioned, there are deadlines. We know the Senate is coming in on the 29th. We will see what happens next week. The House has already passed their side of the transportation package, but we will know more on Monday. We will then know more looking at these other dates. So with that, as a backdrop, the interim calendar. We've got legislative days, as I just mentioned, from September 29th through October 1st. We've got legislative days again in November 17th through the 19th. We have a revenue forecast coming November 19th. We then have another round of legislative days, January 13th through 15th. And that should be in everybody's packet. And then we have some session deadlines for the short session. We have a request legislative concept draft deadline of November 21. Those have to be returned by January 9th. And then the last draft drop deadline is January 16th. So we have some time when folks are going through the exercise that Courtney will talk about here in a little bit. And then we have the legislative session itself in February. So February 2nd through March 9th, they can go for 35 days. So that's our calendar coming up. You can access that again in your package so everybody knows what's going on. Two things that are really hanging over the head of the legislature here in Oregon. One is the transportation package. Two is this disconnect from the federal tax code. We don't know the implications yet. We're going to hear more about that during these these interim sessions. We will have to analyze how that impacts us. There's a couple things there that are very important, the state and local tax piece, and the opportunity zones that we've been able to take advantage of. So we'll see how that plays out, and I'll be relying on staff for that. But the main focus of this legislative session is that the legislature did convene the transportation special session August 29th. There's been delays due to quorum issues. As everybody may or may not know, Senator Gorsuch has had a heart procedure. I think he's had other complications due to that, which aren't allowing him to physically be in the building, and every vote really counts right now. So I don't see how these chambers are getting to the votes that they need. We will know more after Monday. I just mentioned Senator Gorsuch and the House gaveling in and out, which they have to do. But again, they will be voting on that September 29th. So that's that. We're going to keep an eye on the transportation package. And then 2 is the reconnect disconnect with the federal tax code. We're going to keep an eye on that. And things have to happen on that much sooner than a February, right? And again, I don't know all the details on that. I'm not a tax specialist for sure. In looking at the final piece that I wanted to update council on is I've had discussions relating to capital district funding. Again, that payment in lieu of taxes, which we've rebranded. But we're talking about the need, and everybody knows the need that we have in this city. Other municipalities have that as well, but we are unique because we host the seat of the legislature and the state capitol. So I met with Brett Haynes again Monday maybe or last Friday. It was a good meeting. We talked about some potential options. He is still very concerned about safety in and around there. Remember, Brett worked with us along with the former speaker who understood the realities of State Street and trying to get more public safety and more protections in for citizens going in and out of the Capitol. That's how we were able to raise some funds, giving up a lane on State Street. Brett still has those concerns on the Court Street side. He's losing the pull-in, so that's all going to be nice and laid out, but that's giving him a lot of public safety concerns. So I know there's ways in which we can work with our delegation and work with the legislature and a governor who has promised to try to find us a fix, knowing the problems that we are having financially. So I'm encouraged by that conversation. I've reached out to Representative Mannix because he sits on the Capital Planning Commission along with the mayor, and to see if there are some things we can do around that and coordinate with that agency if we were able to do anything in a e-board and or a short session timeframe. So that's what I've been working on here for the last few weeks. Again, it should be business back to normal or business as usual. And frankly, it's just not because of this ongoing special session. I'd be surprised if something comes out on Monday, but again, you never know what happens over the weekend and how those conversations are going. So, Madam Mayor, that's my update.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Justin?
Do we know approximately how much we would, if the transportation package that was passed by the House is passed by the Senate, do we know how much money Salem would receive in transportation funding?
Courtney, I'd have to look to you or our
We
folks and
did
staff here
the
for that money.
and but I'm blanking on what it was right now. I know that in the first year it was not as much because we're already partway into the year. And then after that, I'm sort of thinking 30%. Does that ring a bell to you? Yeah, actually, it was a 30% increase over what we get now. I can follow up with that.
Yeah.
We did some estimates. It would definitely help our transportation fund. As you know, we have a trajectory like this right now with the transportation fund, and this would sort of push that downward slope out a few years. So we wouldn't need to, come up with more revenue on our own because we'd be sharing in the state revenue.
So, but we're talking how many millions, but I mean, we don't know yet.
It's operations and maintenance dollars, so it's not millions.
No, I mean, it's million, I want to say about 3 million, but let me look through my email and see if I can find it when I sent it before.
No
And
problem.
Yeah.
No problem. I put you on the spot. That was my only question. Thank you.
I think I have it.
I might have it too, Julie, from
I
that.
know we've sent it, it's just that, it should have month, so I forgot.
Yeah, well, I hear that, so.
Is this it? This one had the
Yeah.
county totals and the city totals.
Yeah. So it would be, so for FY 26, well, depending on when it's approved, would be another like 2.5 million. For FY 27, it would be about 4.5 million additional, and about 4 million additional in 28 and 29. So right now our apportionments are about 14 million, so it would be adding an additional approximately 4 million starting next year.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, it's not 2 million total. You're talking about what the additional might be.
Right.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yes, the additional.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for finding that question.
Yeah,
Thank you for answering. Thank you for answering.
Yeah.
Are there others? Just a point to make, I listened back to the meeting from the 22nd of August and I just appreciated that you acknowledged that no matter where it comes from or where it goes, it comes from the same source, which is the taxpayer. So just wanted to make that point. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
So, the main part of our meeting today was gonna be to step through the legislative policy statements and talk a little bit about those. We're not needing to take action today. We wanted to make sure that you all had a chance to ask the questions, we had a chance to adjust them to reflect how we're thinking about things today. And consider how to advance them at some future point to the rest of the council. And so I'll just start, if I may, with a quick, what are these about anyway? And then I'm gonna pretend to be Sarah Long from Economic Development. And then we'll hear from other people, and we're just gonna kind of have a broad philosophical conversation, if you're all okay, comfortable with that. Are you in a good spot, Councilor Gwynn? Great. Perfect, okay. So these legislative policy statements, these are things that we as staff use to convey the city's positions on bills and things. Now, they work really well because they allow us to be faster in response to bills or ideas in bills that might be coming forward. They're generally a safe place for us to sort of back things that are annoying, like and we like to talk about unfunded mandates. You can't do that. It's a kind of a creative writing exercise. I think it's fun because I don't often get to do that in my day-to-day job. And so we get to sort of take the first step in when something is forming or not. Now, we've all talked about how sometimes it's better not to use the city voice. Sometimes the league should lead. Sometimes Association of Chiefs of Police should lead. Sometimes any one of the AP, the Oregon version of the APA, American Planning Association, all of the staff that participate here in this work have professional affiliations that stand behind them, and we make strategic decisions together about who should lead. So we try to keep the city voice really focused and zeroing in when it's really, really crucial. And that's when we bring topics before you as the committee. And then we can take action on specific bills. I want to also just share that as we've been reflecting on the way things have been and the way things are today, there's still like a lot that is different. And so these policy statements may have served us well historically, traditionally, they may not anymore. And so I just want to also share that as staff, we're open to your direction about how to change practice or process and how we work together. I think if you've been around the committee for a bit, you might have noticed that it used to be kind of a 1-for-1, like you'd have a bill about transportation funding and it would be really isolated in its impact. Now we have bills that are multifaceted. And so we might actually have positions where the city has different views. And those are the other things that we'll bring here. So like housing, for example, we bring a lot of housing things because sometimes let's talk about the SDC issue, for example. Sometimes there's a housing policy proposal that has multiple facets to it that can sometimes pit city interests against each other. So let's have housing at all costs, including let's forego SDC. Well, sometimes, you know, we have awareness that the SDCs are really in trouble, and that might not be the best thing for the city, but we favor housing. And so we will bring that kind of debate before you. So I just want to be sure to be clear, policy statements have their role. Sometimes they help us in terms of the legislative idea that's getting going. We can step in early and we can say, don't do it that way. Unfunded mandates, no bueno, try this other thing, or whatever it is. But if it's more complicated, touches multiple types of issues that the city cares about or has a footprint in, we try to bring those before you. So you'll notice I think last session, or maybe it was the session before, there were maybe 20 different housing bills. And we tried to bring you all a memo that explained the nuggets of each and get direction generally on housing. So that's been our approach lately. If we proceed with these policy statements as a foundation or guidance for staff, our lobbyists to take action on the city's behalf, then this exercise makes sense and we can go through this work. So I'm just going to pretend for now that we think this has value. And as we go through it, you might offer edits or suggestions for improvement. We will continue to modify this. And before anything happens, this whole thing would go to council and council would approve it or not. And then we would start this thing. So everybody clear on the purpose, our approach, what direction we need from you all? Yes, kind of, yes, good, okay, thank you.
And just a quick add, Courtney, on the front end, it's really helpful for Nicole and I to have this framework and these guidelines for us to identify what may or may not be important to council.
Right.
And to the city. So we really use this document just to put things in front, and then we get into the weeds on what actually fits into an agenda and what doesn't.
Yeah, so what Justin's just described for you makes me exhausted to even discuss. But when session gets going and all the bills drop, Justin and Nikki go through the bills and sort them to the right, and if we don't have a policy statement that says this is important to us, we may not have awareness of it because let's face it, the volume is impossible. And we try to use our best energies where they're best used for the city and for the council's good, okay?
Courtney, may I ask?
Please, anything, let's talk.
No, first of all, I wholeheartely agree with that. You need to have this document with our proposed legislative policy statements. When I've been to the legislature many times, and there's times when I'll run into a legislator in the hallway, they give me exactly 5 seconds. I'm like, hey, what's your priority? What do I need now? And I have that much time. And so if you and I already know where we stand on these things, I'm not going deer in the headlights. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later, and they're gone. So, and I know that happens a lot. And so I completely support that. For the short sessions, my understanding, it's not like the long session where you might have thousands of bills drop. In the short session, you have something of a reprieve because the legislators get just 2 bills.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It was 3. I think they're looking to even narrow that down, but of course, leadership can do as much as they want, right?
So that's not like a binding
It's
requirement.
not a binding, and leadership can always introduce whatever they want at any point.
Okay, so realistically, how many bills do you typically see in the short session as opposed to a long session in recent history?
Yeah, probably a couple hundred or 120 or so.
Not
The
as
problem-
insane.
No, it's still insane though, because you've got like 7 days to get that bill a hearing. Then you have 10 days. If it doesn't get out of the chamber, then 2 weeks in, if it's not on the other side, it's dead. So
Stand corrected.
it's tough. It's tricky.
Can I also just interject too? Like one of the things that has happened in the past, which we may or may not want to do, is that in order to go more quickly, this committee in the past has asked council if it can serve as the city's voice. So we can move more quickly instead of taking a bill and a position and asking the council to approve it. Sometimes this committee is asked for that privilege.
Okay.
Now, what I want to share about that is that it's also true that in the past, the full council has asked for more awareness of what's going on. And so that's also something that can sometimes be attention in particularly in the short session is the need for speed and also the need for awareness. And so that's something else that you might want to consider in terms of change in practice as we're heading into the short session or whatever. So we don't even have to ask for that authority if you all don't want it. Okay?
And that is the full council aware of that?
Yes, it goes, we ask council for that permission.
Okay. And has that been asked recently of this council?
In the short session is the only time that we have asked. And I recall when Councilor Steve McCoy was on council, so I don't know how many years ago that was.
It was a long
session.
2018.
That we had sought that permission and he had asked that there be more awareness. So I just remember that one time it being a challenge. I don't remember, and not a challenge, but just a concern was raised. But I don't remember that happening other times in my tenure.
The only thing that I would suggest is that maybe if that's something that this committee feels is necessary, which I can understand in a short session it would be, but I feel that might need to be reviewed with full council on a regular basis. So maybe, November or January of the year that short session is happening.
We would never do it without asking permission,
Okay.
and it comes from this council.
Okay.
This committee asks for that permission, so
Okay.
you all would have to say, yes, please, we would like that.
Yes,
And then we would send that recommendation to the full council.
I think that would be, so
We're
you
not
let
there.
us know, okay,
I
you
don't
let us
feel-
know when this committee is there, and I
Yeah.
might be here, or I might be here.
I don't know how everyone else is feeling, but I would want first to have confidence that I would want this committee to have confidence in what we're talking about as a platform
Yes,
before we would ask
yes.
for that. But you could tell me differently and I will write whatever you wish.
It's too soon for me to tell at this point, but I appreciate that, I love an opportunity to hear your suggestion now, so I've got some time to process, think about it, and the same goes for the other members of the committee, but I mean, I don't know yet what this short session is gonna look like,
Right.
so I would love to hear what my peers think, though.
Deanna gave a thumbs up.
Could you unmute, Counselor?
I agree that it's too soon.
But it's definitely worth taking into consideration, and to Councilor Nishioka's point, the idea of letting council know early and often. So that they're not blindsided by it. And I hear what Courtney was saying too. We would never blindside council with that, but I think
Could be perceived as not having been informed. So I think that it's just important to have the reminder so that we all go, oh yeah. Now, it's easy for us to forget, but
Well, and
we have the reminder.
I was gonna also just say, like, I think for myself, I feel like the volume can be
It's
overwhelming. I'm not talking about legislative, I'm talking about the phone book that you all get every time you
Oh,
sit
yeah.
down at council, and I think that even if we've written a staff report or we've mentioned it, it can be still hard to remember. There's just so much. So are there any questions about that setup? Does staff want to say, Courtney forgot this, that, or the other? No? Nobody's rushing to, okay. I have some teenagers who might come by and visit with in school a little.
To Councilor Nordike's point though, earlier, we've got this framework. This is great. It's 30,000 foot level, helps us identify, helps us think. That being said, we will have our priorities, which are much more focused, much more narrow. 3 to 4 things is what I always recommend going into whether it's a short session or the long session. Might be 10 priorities or 7 in a long session versus 1 or 2 in a short session. But to your point, when you do, any counselor or mayor, when anybody gets that question, we should know,
Right.
as a unified city, that, hey, I don't know about this issue, but we quickly pivot to what we do care about, which is our priorities, right? So it's like, we haven't taken a position on that, but really need to talk to you about public safety. or example. So yes, we've got this overarching, this is great. We do this ahead of time. We make sure everybody's informed, but then we also have a very singular focus in our legislative priorities. And that's our job to get that in front of you guys.
100%.
So I wonder if it would be more exciting to go straight to the priorities? How would you like to advance this conversation? We can either step through the broad framework, or we can bust right to page 7 and talk about funding priorities, or whether you all have a legislative concept priority that you would like us to try to find home for. Do you want to focus in on priorities or the broad principles that serve as a foundation?
I would say there's only, I know this is a familiar list of policy statements, so I don't have any recommended changes to them. I just want to, I starred and underlined one in particular. Whether that means it should be vaulted to the priorities list is another matter. I don't think it necessarily needs to be. But I want to speak to transient occupancy taxes on page 3. And I just want to make a comment on the record, really. We could really use some flexibility in TOT funds. We get asked all the time to stretch the applicability of TOT funds to support public safety, to support livability, to support future funding for our airport. But there are state laws that define and greatly restrict our ability to have that flexibility. And that, I believe, I'm using that word flexibility because I think we should, as a council, decide how best to utilize those funds. And 1 year it may vary, 1 year, but year by year, that might vary. So I'm not saying let's just completely change the way we do TOT funding. I would just like to have more flexibility in how TOTs are defined and how cities like ours can use it. We're not able to use it for a minimum revenue guarantee, for example. And we've received legal opinions to that point saying, no, you cannot use it for that purpose. So it would just be nice to have that flexibility. I know we're not the only city that has been advocating for that, because I attended the League of Oregon Cities conference. It was a big deal to a lot of other jurisdictions. So I don't know what the success of that would be, especially in a short session. I don't know if that's even going to be coming up. But I just wanted to highlight that. I think every city would love to have greater flexibility in how that money is spent. That's all the comment I want to say.
And it was a major issue at the end of last session too.
And it is anticipated to be a major issue again.
Is it? Okay.
And as with most things, just for awareness, there are gonna be winners and losers for all of these things. And so staking out a position can sometimes cause other challenges, but I like this feedback, and this thank you so much. This is exactly the way I was hoping this conversation would be going. Do any of you want to chime in on this issue of having greater flexibility around transit occupancy taxes? Should we advance that as a possible priority? Again, iterative, we're going to come back to this conversation. We don't have to make a decision today, but should we, as we reshuffle how we're presenting this material, would you like us to elevate that as a possible priority for the coming session?
The use of TOT funds?
Having greater flexibility in how TOT funds are used in local government.
Doesn't really matter to me how that's going to be used, so I'm flexible. My concern are those policy statements. Are these the policy statements that we've been using for several years, or are these new just for this upcoming session?
They are the ones we've been using for several years with some slight modifications. I did ask staff to review them because it's sort of like kitchen sink, or we had been carrying quite a few things that were relevant in past sessions, and so just looking for a way to kind of streamline, because it is a lot. I think it was 11 pages. It is a lot, and if we're striving towards this ideal that we've been describing, where everyone's on the same page and the page is short, what gets elevated from the framework to be the things that we're all talking about in the coming short session and then future sessions. So both and, if possible.
And
Okay.
Counselor, I would just add, I've served on legislative committee for a number of years now, and these policy statements, every once in a while, we might do some redlining and some tweaking, but for the most part, these are pretty familiar to me. We've had variations on these policy statements for a number of years, but as a counselor and member of committee, if there's anything on here that you want edited or removed, this is one of your opportunities to speak up and say so. We will have multiple committee meetings, but that's why the city presents these to us, so that when Justin does his work, he knows that we're speaking with a united voice.
So CSO Bush, so you mentioned earlier, and I think Councilor Nishioka also referenced this, that this particular body has the jurisdiction to make a lot of decisions, and we can also include the rest of the counselors when we make big decisions also. Is that correct?
Yes, and staff typically have used the policy statements as the framework. Once they're approved, that presents the place from which we can lobby. So the legislative committee is advisory to council. The legislative committee makes a recommendation. These are the policy statements we want to use this year. And then the council approves. So if there is a bill that's a one subject bill that deals with creating a new state mandate, a new unfunded mandate, if staff feel like its primary purpose is unfunded mandate, and look, we have this position and council's approved it, then we as staff can say, no, thank you. We don't like that bill. It's an unfunded mandate. That's a really simple and stupid example, actually, as I'm listening to myself, because it's never going to be just that simple. But does that help?
It does. The only thing that I'm getting kind of stuck on is I think there is value in having the entire council look at these policy statements.
Yes.
And I say that because, when I think about, just this past week, when we are talking about out of the transportation bill, and that's a big thing. And we saw how that played out on Monday. And so part of me says, when things play out like they did on this past Monday, where you have people on this side of the fence or this side of the fence, a part of me says that everyone needs to be aware of these particular statements because they may have input, they may have suggestions, they may not agree with everything. So I am in the position that we need to elevate these particular policy statements to the entire council.
We do. And we do, Counselor. I mean, these policy statements were voted upon by legislative committee and presented to the full council. It's in the council agenda. So I can assure you, this is not the first time council has seen these policy statements and priorities. We do bring them to council, and staff make sure that it's included as one of our items on our agenda. But as Courtney says, we do have big agendas, and sometimes it's one of dozens of items sometimes on an agenda, but I can assure you that process already takes place, and council's already voted on these earlier this year.
And we're just we're starting a new cycle. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to make sure that Councilor Vang, she's the newest council member. I want to make sure that she can also partake in this decision.
Yes, she will. And also, by the way, just as an aside, I haven't yet today, but I intend to connect with her because I think we missed part of that in the new council orientation. So I will do that intentionally.
Thank you.
Did you get your question answered, Councilor Brown? Okay. Councilor Gwynn?
Is that part of the consent agenda? As far as bringing the legislative, right?
Traditionally, yes. If you would like it to be a different presentation or something from staff, that's certainly possible.
I think that it should always be a special order of business. I think that things get buried in our consent agenda and people don't know what they're approving. And I'm not saying I'm that person, but I think that oftentimes important things like this get buried in a consent agenda and don't get discussed.
So I will say, I think that when these policies were initial focus, you did present it to all of us. I'm pretty sure that that was something that was done. It was this last session that was just refreshing it. But maybe my memory isn't right, but I thought that you had already provided either a presentation, I don't know if it was under special order. Because I remember that you came to the podium and spoke about it. So again, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that I know I'm thanking you for when you have.
Well,
And that I think it would be in agreement with Councilor Gwynn. It is important for us to hear it again. Just an example, when we had the drawdown information report, I didn't want to just leave it there because it's really important for the public to hear that are listening or that would go back and listen, that there's a brief update, if nothing else, to run through it, because it is very easy to get lost in all of the material that is to us. And so I think it is important. I think many of us learn or be refreshed auditorily. And I think that it's not always easy to get everything that might come to us if it's also spoken about again. That's all I'm saying.
yes, thank you. I hear this and we will endeavor to meet that expectation.
And I just want to say, I agree. I agree with putting under special orders of business just for greater transparency. I think that's a great suggestion, Councilor Gwynn.
Good, okay. And I think, is this your freak out face? Like, I'm not coming to the podium, no. I'll take care of it, you got it, I got the mark. All right, good. Yeah, so this is a really good conversation to be having. So we had transit occupancy taxes. I had intended that staff would be able to step through each thing because we have a lot of expertise in the room. I think we'll just not do that today because we're running a lot of time. But we will be ready to do that next time we come together. And so you guys can ask questions. If I want to just make sure that for those of you that were carefully reading ahead, is there anything else that you would like us to elevate for your consideration as a priority for the coming session? So Todd, I heard one. Other things?
Yes, I do have one other thing. So let me refer to it to you so you folks see it. So on page 5, the proposed legislative policy statements includes mental health services co-response model. I know that in our council meetings, we've been talking a lot about Chief Gerbeau's proposed community health response model. And funding has certainly been raised as one of the potential barriers to bringing this to fruition. And I would be in favor of adding funding for that pilot project as part of our list of funding priorities.
I'm going to go ahead and just put that on in the draft list. And so you have a chance to talk about that more detailed next time we get together. Are there other things that people would like to contribute to this draft list of priorities?
I just have a question. And it may sound incredibly simple and rather stupid, but I'm going to ask anyway. We had the payment in lieu of taxes. It's now called payment in capital district funding. And we've already been given estimates of about $2.5 million that our citizens with their local tax dollars are supporting police and fire. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity where we bring forward a request that we can bill for services so that we're not limited to a particular amount that we decide on in 1 year that would continue. And I don't know if that's something that could be brought forward to the legislature without an actual dollar amount, or if we would have to have something like a span of, we expect it based on history to be somewhere between 2 and 5, but have the opportunity to say, and I'm using Dr. Brown's suggestion from our last meeting when he said, well, how about if we send an invoice? And I thought, could we send an invoice? And would that be something that could then, instead of feeling like payment in lieu of taxes, even more directly saying, this is the public services we're providing or public safety services. This is what it costs. And I'm just, because I think it's still too tied to this payment in lieu of taxes, and I want to see if we can jump beyond that. So I don't know, I'm just asking.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. This is why this document's great, right? We get ideas, we get to talk things through. Obviously, there's pros and cons to everything. When somebody's in charge of a huge budget,
Yes.
open-ended invoices might be like, how are we gonna do this?
Right.
That being said, we've got to look at all these opportunities, right? We are in crisis mode and we need to identify opportunities and options that we could go into. So I love this line of thinking. That's why I think this is such a good document. That's why we're not saying, let's pass this today. We're saying, everybody review this. Let's go through it. Let's continue to have this conversation as a working document to get our ducks in a row, not just for 26. Again, I don't have a lot of expectations out of a short session, especially when we've got our own internal elections in May. There are primaries in May. The special session gets even more political than a regular session. So, but these are all great ideas that we should be mulling over and talking about what are the realities of looking at these. So,
Well, thank you. I feel like I didn't ask this to you.
no, that's great.
I think it's a brilliant idea.
Exactly. We got to start looking at other ways because again, we also have to remember we're not the only ones that are unique that have property off the rolls,
Exactly,
right?
and I want us to.
We're not even top 5. So how we message that, how we go about that, these are just really tough times. So we need to have discussions like this.
Our chief of police and our fire chief are both very data-driven individuals, and it's easier than ever to actually calculate the cost of providing public safety to the Capitol, which is early and often. So thank you, Councilor Nishioka, but I think I actually should be thanking Councilor Brown.
And
Team
Councilor
effort.
Downey,
Team
you
effort.
had your hand up. Did you want to chime in?
Yes, so on one of the priorities, I noticed that we are talking about, the unsheltered population. We're also talking about affordable housing. And I'm going to go back to something I've said before, and this is where I differ when it comes to Madam Governor and how she sees and wants to handle the unsheltered crisis. Obviously her belief is just keep building houses, they will come. Keep building houses, they will have a place to stay. I differ with that. Only because just because you have a home does not solve the fact that you have either, an addiction to drugs or you have some mental health issues. And so I tend to fall on that side first, like care for the individual and then find a place for them to live. And sometimes you can do that at the same time. So my question is, when I go through there, I want to hear or see something in regards to civil commitment. I know that was a big talking point for this past session. And that's a part that I don't think we've even discussed as a council about how we think about that particular component when it comes to taking care of a homeless population. Now, hear me clearly. I'm not saying that we lock up folks that are on the streets because it's not illegal to be homeless. Yet at the same time, if there are some people on the streets that do not have the mental capacity to take care of themselves, then that falls on us. Like, how do we look out for every individual, especially those folks that are on the street who really cannot take care of themselves? So that weighs on me, especially when I am in driving through, Ward 5 from Hawthorne to Sunnyview to Fisher. It's a hot mess. And so how do we elevate that part of the conversation, CSO Bush?
It's a great question. And it is also true that I remember writing up a whole bunch of things about the collection of civil commitment legislation that was put forward last session. I see someone nodding in my, thank you. It's not, I didn't do it in my sleep. Excellent. And so I can certainly go back to what appeared last session and put together some sort of a statement that you all can reflect on and decide if it accurately represents where the city may want to lobby from. So I'll put something together on that topic. Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you, Jessica. We did talk about that, I remember, in a prior legislative committee meeting. So yes, no, and I remember, we ended up being on the same side of supporting some bill changes that NAMI of Oregon supported. And they, to me, have a lot of leadership on mental illness. It's National Alliance for Mental Illness, Oregon chapter. And they did a ton of work on mental health and civil commitment issues that was really thoughtful. And so I remember saying that, well, if NAMI thinks it's a good idea, it's a good idea. When it came to that issue, so, and how that bill was structured. So anyway, no, you didn't make it up.
Thank
We had a very good conversation about that, but I appreciate you, Counselor Brown. We have so many people struggling with mental illness in this city. And it seems that we have a disproportionate number of persons who are struggling with those issues, perhaps because of the number of institutions we have present, but it certainly feels we have more than our fair share of folks who don't have community health resources or public health resources to assist them.
Counselor Gwynn, did you have anything else you wanted to add? I know we're going over, so I just want to be respectful. Okay.
Okay.
I think Shani's gonna. It's gonna come off mute until.
Oh, dear.
So.
Maybe
so,
they'll come back in.
So just staff commitment to you is moving forward, whatever we do to adjust these statements will be coming forward and track changes. So that you can see where and how you can focus your attention on the elements that we might have changed. And next time we get together, we'll just step a little bit more intentionally through the, and we'll start with the priorities and then move into the statements, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I should.
Okay, good. Good.
When is our next meeting?
I think we're supposed to be on this cadence. I don't remember what, is this the fourth Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be on the fourth Friday cadence. If that's okay, and then obviously, if we don't have anything of merit to share with you, we cancel those, we let you know. If we get into the sessions, we try to go a little bit faster. Sometimes we meet every other Friday. And also just so you have awareness, if it's on this Friday, that means I can get it to the first council meeting
That's right.
of the month. So that's part of there's a little bit of method to the madness.
We're on the 24th.
Yep.
I
have
have
it
it
too.
down on the 10th, but that might have been when the cadence was every 2.
Yes,
So-
we were,
I can cancel that one with
Please.
comfort.
yeah,
Okay,
we're
good.
just doing fourth Fridays for now, unless you tell us different. Because we're not in a rush.
Just on that note, looking at this calendar, do we want to talk about the intention for November then? Because the city will be closed for that Thanksgiving.
We can certainly talk about that. Can we do that next time?
Of course.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get fly.
Yeah, I'll be busy on the Thanksgiving.
So I'll look for a different Friday and maybe we'll go a week ahead, a week, 2 weeks ahead. We can adjust. All right,
Great.
excellent. Thank you so much for your time. If there's nothing else, I think we'll try to be respectful, and Counselor Gwynn, you can get where you need to go.
Yeah, very good.
Excellent.
Good to see you all.
Thank you